A crowd of just over 100,000. I mean, extraordinary, and puts to bed any of those fears about, two non-Victorian teams. But it was great, and here's the final score.
It's a 60-point thrashing. It was tight early in the first quarter, but then 12 goals to 2 in the second and third quarters set it up for the Brisbane Lions, and they were delirious in the last quarter. I think most of them weren't even playing football in the last quarter. I saw a couple of players hugging on the outer side when the ball was on the other side of the ground. So what a time it would have been to be a Brisbane Lion player in that last quarter, knowing that you couldn't lose it, it was yours to keep, and there was just celebrations like this.
We had Dane Zorko after the game on 3AW, and we said, what was it about you up there with the captains on the dais? He said, when I handed over the captaincy, Chris Fagan said, if we win a premiership, you've been here through all the hard times, you've captained through all the hard times, I'm going to have you get up on that stage with the captains, and he stuck to his word and did it.
Yeah. Amazing scenes. I mean, 35 years of age, 5-time best and fairest winner, missed the great era clearly at Brisbane and went through the hard times, and a career best year for Dane Zorko, still going strong.
When you talk about special moments, I thought one of these special moments was late in the game when Joe Danaher kicked his final goal, as it would, and everyone just came from everywhere to get around him.
Yeah, TJ, there's now a very, very strong chance he has played his last game of football. There was a conditioning and an awareness of that news. Kane made aware of the Brisbane Lions officials prior to the game. I believe it was about a month ago or thereabouts. There had been some, I suppose, talk during the course of the 2024 season that he might be considering his future. I believe that there were key people at the Lions now aware of that going into the game. And while there is still some wiggle room, and there'll be I think a concerted pitch to try and have him revisit this decision, at the moment, there is, as I said, a strong conditioning and even expectation that is it, which is extraordinary given how well he played in that grand final, how well he played in last year's grand final, and how well he played in big matches for Brisbane Lions.
OK, so more of that to come. And, of course, don't forget Footy Furnace tonight. We'll have a complete wrap-up of the weekend, including that particular announcement, possibly, from Joe Danaher. At the other end of the career spectrum, I suppose, Will Ashcroft is just taking off.
He certainly is, and he was brilliant yesterday. He's packed a lot into a couple of years, a knee reconstruction, back into the side, and then a Norm Smith medalist yesterday. He was super clean. He loves the 1-2, Will Ashcroft, but he's just a running machine. He makes the right decisions at the right times, and the voting said that yesterday. Lockie Neal came second. I thought Lockie Neal was fantastic. I would have been happy with either, but this man, and he was brilliant in all finals. So it wasn't just this grand final. He was brilliant in all finals, and his toughness in packs. Remember that handball he gave out when about 4 or 5 Giants players were tagging him a couple of weeks ago? Was outstanding. But there it is, 14-8, 7. Calamard Kai Lohmann got the 1. But I would have thought Lockie Neal would have been a little bit closer.
And I thought Harris Andrews was right up there too with the game that he played as well. I just thought yesterday the Sydney Swans were too safe in the way they played the game. Their only way of trying to score was by chipping the ball around a little bit. So this is a Sydney Swans game. There was no dare, there was no handball around the back. They were too safe. John Longmire spoke about it after the game. This led up to a row-bottom goal, but this was the only time they looked safe, because when Brisbane got it in live play, they were just too fast and too dynamic. So this is the Brisbane Lions. They would give the handball. The Sydney Swans refused to give the handball, take the game on, and then they had to bomb the ball into a forward line that is just dysfunctional with 3 players who didn't stand up again in that forward line. So this was just Brisbane. I don't know what they'll do on the Swans here. Kai Lohmann kicks his 3rd goal. No one went near him. Ollie Florent played a poor game, didn't want to go near him, didn't want to check. But this is what I loved about Brisbane. They played with dare. They played a whole final series with dare because they had to win a game. I just wonder, John Longmire, does he have to ask himself, do I have too safe a plan? You know, it can get me to grand finals, but it can't win me grand finals. You touched on Kane, they're unselfish now, Brisbane. I just think, again, Joey Danaher, again, how unselfish they were come finals time when it mattered most.
It was amazing, wasn't it? Because that had been such an issue for them, and all throughout the final series they found a better option, put them in a better position to score, and they made them pay, Damo.
Lordo, I thought the transition of Brisbane when they were defending Sydney was outstanding, but the other way, Sydney couldn't transition, Sydney couldn't defend, and it was almost like they were encouraging Brisbane for those short passes, but they just could not defend the ground at all.
Spot on, Brownie. Do you know they had pretty much the same amount of inside 50s, but it was double the scoring shots. Double the scoring shots. So it was just a masterclass of coaching and execution.
Damo, one of the romantic aspects, if you like, of this is Chris Fagan.
It is, TJ. Just put this into context. This day 2 years ago, in 2022, he was stood down as Brisbane coach pertaining to the Hawthorn racism saga, which they had broken that week 2 years ago. So just put that into context, then what he's done. Losing a grand final last year by a kick, having the turmoil of having a slow start to the year, the 4 wins, 6 loss, 1 draw scoreline after their first 11 games, and then people like that on screen, Lee Matthews, the great Lee Matthews, and the bond that those two men have. They speak so regularly. It may not be daily, but it's very, very regularly. And the trust that they've got. And it was no surprise that he was one of the very first people that Chris Fagan went to. And it's an amazing story, TJ. The fact he never was going to be a coach. He was 54 before he got his chance to be a coach. He's considered his future regularly over the journey. Is he the right man? He's got this team to 6 consecutive final series and obviously got better in each one of those and just took a team into that game yesterday that he knew was going to be there for him, as they have been all year.
It's right up there with 2016 for me, like the unsurprising premiere when the Western Bulldogs won it. So you look at the start that you mentioned, but you look at the final series, 44 points down against the Giants, down against Geelong, go on the road for 3 weeks in a row, win it from outside the top 4. The injuries that they've had, the ACLs, the Oscar McInerney losing your ruckman, and to still win it. It's as good a storyline in terms of winning a premiership from nowhere as we've seen for a long time. And just the two midfielders, which we've touched on, and how clean they were. I'm pretty certain no one touches the ball more than Lachie Neale at training. He speaks about 1,000 touches a week. And then on the biggest stage, it comes out. And Ashcroft follows Neale with that because Neale sets the example. Ashcroft comes in as a young player. Just look at how clean they were. That off your toes, bang, one-step goal. That just doesn't happen on grand final day. That happens throughout the pre-season. Watch this from Lachie Neale. Like just that little touch. You've got to watch the game 3 or 4 times to understand that. Like that is full speed, one hand, off your bootlaces, and the combination that those two had together yesterday. Look at this. On the outside, Ashcroft just swoops through. So the
chemistry... It's all with a half tag by Rowbottom all day.
Exactly right. So this just doesn't... It's not the result on grand final. You see this, but what you don't see is the amount of touches they have during the week and the work that they do on their craft, which then comes out on grand final day like it did yesterday.
I don't care for injuries that come out after grand finals because once you cross the white line, you learn you're fit, in my opinion. And Lachie Neale was one who they say couldn't walk on Thursday. He spoke to Jack Gunston during the week. He said he rarely trains because of his body. But you're right, Kane, he must do that much touch and do other things, swimming, whatever, to keep himself as fit. But this is now his record. He had one thing missing, and that was the fact that he wasn't a premiership player. But pretty much that is the full CV for Lachie Neale.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's got 2 Brownlow medal runners-up as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely extraordinary. So their marks, you spoke about their speed, 158, the second most of all time for the season. But they were 117 marks last week, Sydney 111, and Brisbane just did this all game. And this is what I'm talking about, how Sydney just didn't defend this. It was like they knew they were going to do it, they allowed them to do it, and then they allowed them the overlap on the back of that. Yeah,
John Longmire spoke after the game. He said we allowed them too much leg rope. But how can you be so timid and in a grand final?
The number's 100 uncontested marks for Brisbane. They took 41 in the first quarter.
Lack of urgency.
They had 76 uncontested marks at half-time, and the number's 100. Keep them under 100. They took 100 last week. You basically win. To allow them to do that, the leg rope you speak of, they were just smashed everywhere.
Well, but were they also taken by surprise somewhat by the ferocity of Brisbane?
How can you be, though?
The only thing I can compare it to is like when you two had that boxing thing, like when he just came out and you were just like on the ropes.
Higher stakes on this, though. You've got it. This is the one game you get yourself up for. They were in a really good position. They had the best preparation coming in. They've been the best side all year. So to produce that on grand final, there isn't any excuses for that.
And the fact that this is now added to what happened in 2022, where the game was over in the second quarter, as it was yesterday. That was an 81-point loss. Yesterday was a 60-point loss. This can't be walked past now from this football club. And John Longmire, we know, has been wrestling with his own future beyond next year. He's contracted. But to be smashed now twice inside 3 seasons, to add the 16 grand final and the 14 grand final to the losses that he's had as a coach of this footy club, I expect this club to fully debrief this one. And I think some big conversations will be had. And
what you suggesting that they'll look at his future?
TJ, I'm not over-dramatising it to say Malcolm Blight, it got to the better of Malcolm Blight. 1989, 1992, 1994, demoralised in grand finals, left. And then the Cats made the grand final again the next year under a different coach. I'm just saying, these types of results, now that we've got 2 inside 3 years, can have a massive effect as the way you view yourself and the way a club views you. Now, I've got as much time for John Longmire as anyone in football for what it's worth. And I think he's an amazing coach, but his game plan has fallen down badly, really, really badly, embarrassingly badly in 2 of the past 3 grand finals.
And he'll have to go into next year, you'd think, on a 1-year deal. He's got a year to go, so you wouldn't think that'd extend.
Alrighty, so now, as I said, it is with a bit of a heavy heart that we play out today's program. And for the final time, maybe someone wants to take it over next year, I'm not too sure. But for the final time, it's the volcano.
Thank you, TG. The last volcano is to Isaac Heaney, and Lordo just said...
It's actually J as opposed to G.
Isaac Heaney?
No, TG.
Oh, TG.
Yeah.
Sorry. Don't disrupt my last volcano, would you? I was all fired up. No, don't worry about that. Isaac Heaney is the volcano, because Lordo just said, I don't care for injuries on grand final day. So have a look at it. He was poor yesterday once again. Now, these are the vision, clearly heartbroken. So he was the hottest player in football coming into this game. He was the favourite for the Norm Smith medal. He was walking on water in the qualifying final, in the prelim final. Port Adelaide had no answers. He was a man possessed. And to turn up yesterday and not give the performance that he had all year, I was disappointed to hear this from John Longmire after the game.
It was a stress reaction in his shin.
Yeah, well, there was no stress reaction in his shin in the prelim final or qualifying final, so don't give me an injury excuse after another 11 disposal performance in 2022. Yesterday hardly went near it and no influence, and I just don't want the injury excuses. So Isaac's got to look at his preparation in the big games and why he's failed again as the best player in football this year, but not on the biggest stage yesterday.
We've all enjoyed the volcano. We've all loved it. And it is a Channel 9 Kane Corns thing. On SCN the other morning, I was listening. Did you say to Kingy, I should be able to take volcano with me? Did you say those words?
The volcano's coming.
No, it's not.
I'm
putting my foot down on that one.
And then you asked, what about close checking that you do on Classified? And Kingy said, I wouldn't take that with you.
The volcano's mine. I'm claiming.
TJ, you're the boss of our show. Well, that's not happening.
He thinks he's taking
What are you going to do?
I don't think you can take. You can't take segments with you.
Well,
That's not going, mate.
I think you can.
No, you can't.
No.
Well,
No, because
do you know who created the volcano?
Odell Hutching.
my son wasn't
Your
it?
son.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He created
Well,
it.
having lived with one for most of his
Great
life. Yeah. So, we'll have to talk about.
We'll talk
that.
about this at post.
We'll talk about that.
Post-show.
If that's the biggest issue we've got with you leaving at the moment. But anyway.
I want to say, Kane, what you just touched on there with Heaney, I think Logan McDonald, what a decision that was to take him. He was limping within the first quarter.
First contest.
Yeah, his first contest. So they didn't play Callum Mills. Well, they shouldn't have played Logan McDonald either with what he did yesterday. But let's look at what will haunt the Sydney Swans, some contests that will haunt the Sydney Swans for the rest of their career. So here's Brodie Grundy. Unforgivable by Grundy, and Big Hayden McLean was just as bad in the ruck. We're getting ragdolled. So here's a contest. Dane Rampy's been a wonderful player for a long time. You don't get beaten like that in a 1v1 contest. This, McInerney, this is unforgivable. What is that?
That's bad.
That is as bad as it gets on grand final day. Errol Goulden on Ashcroft, just trailing in when the game's not on your terms, trailing in, letting Ashcroft kick a goal. Look at Blakey down here. Where's the touch? Poor grand final by Blakey. Didn't want to touch, didn't want to have body contact, so Rayner gets a run and jump at the footy like he wants to. Tom Papley, he's been in the face of everyone until grand final day when he just coughs the ball up, the ball goes straight back down and results in a goal. Blakey, what sort of a tackle was that? He's got to live with this. They all have to for the rest of their time in this game where they embarrass themselves on grand final day. This one here, the chase from Joey Danaher, and this is where Johnny Longmire is going to have live with this for the rest of his time. I knew they were out-coached, outplayed, outworked, out-muscled in the biggest game of all, which they've got to live with.
All right, yeah, it's going to be brutal, that's for sure. Geez, I tell you what, the group text thing's going off. People claiming.
No, it was definitely Mitch Jones who created the volcano.
Well, Luca, one of our producers, is saying it was.
Luca's created a lot of things and done some amazing things, but not the volcano.
I think Luca was the brains behind the team of the decade, if you remember that. Remember that segment that lasted for a week?